P Diddy was right
Yeah, they
here.
were right here. Donald Trump does say that we have liquid gold under our feet, and I guess P Diddy agreed with that. It's baby oil, though.
This is the room where they found all the boxes of baby oil.
There you go.
Whoa. Hang on, guys.
Boxes of baby
Drink
oil.
chance with you. I like it when you like this, Daddy. Daddy, I like when you scrambling and scraping for shit. I like that.
Welcome to Imma Talks podcast. Today's episode is going to be fantastic. We're going to be talking about going from renting to owning to accepting voucher programs to offset your rent, survive the pandemic. My special guest here to my left, I can't wait for you to hear his actual true life story and experience. And to my right, of course, we have the mortgage icon. So before I get started, just a reminder, I'm a real estate broker in New York City. The name of my company is Tyler Vincent Real Estate. And I met Kyle Smith while our children were in PS 32 together.
PS 32 in Brooklyn, New York City. Welcome, everyone. Nice to meet you, Staten Island native, born and raised and returned to living in Staten Island, homeowner, investor, landlord, corporate Wall Street, 9-to-5 job having owner, single dad, and home purchaser.
There you go. And to my right, the mortgage icon himself, Ionas Con.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this amazing episode of Imma Talks. Today we're going to be covering a lot of very interesting topics, how our guest has become a homeowner and investor at the same time, how these decisions were delivered, and what was the approach that was used in order to do that. Welcome to this amazing episode of Imma Talks.
You know, there's something else I want to talk about. I know it's like right on the lips of just about everyone and everyone's ears today is, of course, Sean Diddy Combs. I know it's like a dirty word today, but here goes. You know, he too owns real estate, right? No Diddy doing dirty deeds there. But he happens to own multiple pieces of real estate. So what I find interesting is that
No way.
Yeah, he does. 17,000 square foot mansions and things like that. I wonder if those freak offs were happening in any of his own private homes. But in the meantime, I mean, you know, I really have not been following every single day, but on TikTok occasionally it pops up, and my heart goes out to like Cassie's husband, not to Cassie. She was conscious and aware most of the time and still in touch with him after the fact and all this kind of stuff. So it's kind of like, okay, when do you learn your lesson stuff? So whatever. Let's just put that aside. I wonder what the real estate values are going to be like on his properties. Are they going to skyrocket? Is he going to be forced to sell stuff? Is he going to be paying millions and billions of dollars on lawsuits? And who the heck knows what's going to happen, right? Do you think it'll have an effect on his real estate? I mean, he has multiple properties.
Absolutely. Since, you know, there will be a decision by the judgmental institutions, and like our system will say they will understand what was done and all these beautiful, where was the oil kept and multiple.
Oh, yeah.
Like,
I wonder if he, you know, he must, you know, come on, that was bulk purchase. I mean, did he have like a contract
but
with,
let's forget about
Johnson and Johnson?
Let's forget about Johnson and Johnson involvement. That would be a product placement, by the way. Let's just think about the situations where, you know, God forbid any very bad things happen at the property, like murders.
Yes, and there was bad things happening, right? At a lot of these parties, right? There's a lot of stuff, right? Drugs, leaves children. Sad.
Yeah, it really depends on the society we live, right? Yeah. If we live in a society that says, hey, there was a stack of oil over there, and that's a good thing, then this is a
and
mental
it's not from Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, it's not that type of oil, right?
Speaking about real estate specific, I think the market is what the market is. You know, with
you don't think someone's going to be like, I want his mansion, I'll pay double.
If there's no, you know, moment where he has to do like a fast sell off, you know, to raise funds to pay any sort of damages, I don't see there being any change to. I can't see there being any change to his real estate investments. I mean, at all. Like, it's still it is what it is. You know, like
Yeah.
if he has to do a forced sale, then people are like, oh yeah, your mansion's worth how much? Yeah, I'll give you like 5% of.
Yeah, 5% of that. No, because people do like buying properties that belong to celebrities, right?
Absolutely.
So they're like, what? You know, like
Yeah.
Heath Ledger's house that sold in Borum Hill. People want to be like,
P Diddy
Heath
was
Ledger,
right
yeah,
here.
they were right here.
You were
The-
buying a property and
Diddy's
he
right
was
here.
sitting here.
Turned it into a museum.
Ate breakfast here, touched
was-
the doorknobs here.
And this
Yeah.
is the room where they found all the boxes of baby oil.
There you go.
I
Exactly.
haven't changed anything since I
Exactly.
moved in.
Yeah.
And we're going to give you a certificate of oil. All those things come together.
Certificate
But,
of oil
but I
ownership.
also
That's
think it's
hysterical.
important to understand the dynamics, just like you mentioned. First of all, he's a very rich person, so it's not likely
Very
that
wealthy.
even after this situation that there will be a mandatory sale.
Right,
But
right.
even if it happens, we're talking about a celebrity status of the property itself.
Exactly.
Okay.
And,
Exactly. Celebrity status of
It's
the
not
property.
just a random dude that was randomly shot without any oil,
Correct.
right? So it just different situation, but it's also very important to understand how the society would look at it. But it's not also not about the whole society.
Right.
It's about the people who would like to buy this type of history.
Look, it's the same thing with, gangsters, mobsters, mansions. They always sell for top dollar. People like so excited that a mob head figure lived in it.
Staten Island.
Island is, AKA Staten Italy. But so at the end of the day, yeah, that does happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sean Diddy Combs' real estate actually goes up in value and somebody out there just wants it for the hell of it because they got enough money to just throw it out there and be like, yo, let's have a party today. And they'll, who knows, label
again,
one of the rooms
The nominal
freak-off.
value is not the value of transaction, meaning this is the value on paper,
Right.
on estimate price. But in actual, there is another, let's say there is another crazy guy, a group of people who would love to buy this property, and they don't care about the price.
Exactly, because they have the cash.
They
Some
have-
people do have the cash.
yeah,
They don't even
it's-
care.
it's-
Who cares if
yeah.
it appraises or doesn't, right? They just want
They
it.
don't care about appraisal. They would like to buy a place with put a statue of a big bottle of oil over there.
And guess what? That's when I say if the walls could talk. I don't
Right.
like to be a fly in the wall in one of those rooms and see what
And
the
that would be a
heck's
good
going on.
investment
Can I be
because
an
the
investor in that?
Exactly.
Let's talk.
Let's talk. Let's talk.
Yeah, guys, we're not pitching any of these properties right now. We're trying to understand how the dynamic would
But in
work
case
in
you
this
need a
situ-
real estate professional, call me. I'll move to California or Miami for that sale.
Yeah, it's interesting because those communities are very, very different. In these communities,
are very
there
different.
are very famous people to begin with. And in one of our previous episodes, you mentioned that there were some co-ops that didn't want to allow Madonna to buy to
Exactly.
enter.
To
In those
enter, right. And it
communities-
happens. It does happen.
Yeah.
Yeah, in these communities, nobody's allowed to say P Diddy or anyone else who wants to buy over there because this is a decision of a seller, of the owner of the property.
Yeah, and I mean, we're joking and all this kind of stuff, but they
Right.
were like victims, children, alleged, let me just say alleged, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not really following the case and stuff like that, but these alleged parties, unfortunately, some things happened there that, of course, that's the reason why he's on trial, right?
Right,
So
right.
allegedly, things happened, and we want to, of course, our hearts go out to those people, right?
So,
But again, the real estate.
and to clarify, it's not alleged because if you even follow just the surface level, like the case of we do not deny anything that people are saying that Diddy said. What we're saying is that it wasn't a criminal empire. So like even that defense is so. That's interesting.
It is interesting.
very
It is interesting.
interesting.
Makes you want to scratch your head a little bit, right? I hope he has a great defense team. And he might have to sell off one of these mansions to pay them because, this is a big
Something happened, but not on that level.
Right.
There was something over there, but no one
Things
is.
went down, but there was no racketeering.
deal. But look, there's camera footage, but then it's up to interpretation.
We weren't
It was a
smuggling
different-
people across state lines.
Yeah, we weren't
It
smuggling.
was a different angle. It was a different angle. So yeah, it's very strange. So now looks like Mr. Diddy has a different real estate, and he's not owning because he lives over there right now.
Well, he's got new real estate,
He's got
right?
it.
Is he still in prison?
He's still in prison.
He's
right?
got new
So
real estate,
He's got new real estate
state of the
for
art,
free.
tiny, Small, no.
Yeah.
8 by 10. What is it?
So
You
guys,
know,
From 17,000 square feet.
so there's a wonderful book that I was introduced to when I bought my first property in 2006 called Millionaire Next Door, right? And it talks about this idea of the person who lives next to you, you know, who doesn't own a Bentley, you know, doesn't have on a Rolex,
Fancy watches.
probably wears the same khakis and beat up shoes every day, but, you know, they have their money invested.
Yes.
And so the point of all this is, like, they talk about most of the millionaires next door don't live where they own.
That's right.
They own investment properties and then they rent because they look and go, no, I'll let somebody else pay for what it is that I need to do with the house where I'm living.
Exactly.
As I'm managing, you know, my own properties where somebody else is
Exactly.
paying for where it is they're
These
living.
are all good books, actually. That's a good book.
You know, so to this point, I mean, you know, listen, he's kind of making out, right? Because he's renting where it is.
He's making out.
It's federally subsidized renting, right? Because the government is paying for him to have his block of a cell.
Yes.
It's money that's
got
not
clothing.
coming out of his pocket. His clothing is provided for him. He
Yes.
gets 3 hots in a cot every day. I mean, and he's still making money.
And he's still making
actually
money.
doing pretty well off.
Yes.
I'm just saying.
He is, for sure. And his real estate's appreciating at the same time.
Might not be such a bad idea, you know.
You know, yeah.
power is seducing. The ultimate power is ultimately seducing. So probably at some point he could not be satisfied by anything that was surrounding, and he
Understood.
started going
And-
through the roof.
Yeah.
Right.
And my favorite line is absolute power corrupts.
Corrupts, absolutely.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So when someone becomes so powerful, you know, hey, it's the way it goes. But so, yeah, real estate is everywhere. So he's going to be, you know, I'm sure going to be like happy to find out that someone's going to want to buy that if it goes up for sale just because it was his. Just like everything else, you know, everywhere you go, where, you know, people just are still stargazed, you know, they're stargazed. They like fall in love with the glamour that someone else is living. I was never that kind of person because, like, I'm just like, what does that have to do with anything? Am I going over to dinner? I wasn't invited to any of these parties. I wasn't invited over for dinner. I'm not invited to the White House. I mean, like, really? Every taxpayer should be invited to the White House at least one time in their lifetime, and I think the House could hold us. So I kind of think that should be a letter to the president. But we pay for that White House. We pay for all that stuff. So, hey, you know what? I'd like to be invited to the
Yeah, you might be
dinner.
inviting an executive order that says that the White House can't receive mail from anyone that is not a
named
White House.
Imma. No mail from Imma Talks podcast.
Executive order signed into
Executive
law.
order.
So you're
All
saying
right.
finding out that there was a stash of bottles will not make you feel better or
Yeah.
more happy about
Well, you know,
buying
Donald Trump does say that we have liquid gold under our feet, and I guess P Diddy agreed with that. It's baby oil, though.
that. He just meant different oil.
Different
It
oil.
was just a different oil.
Different oil.
Right.
Big time different oil. But in the meantime, you know, that's that for the Diddy trials. You know.
Good vibes.
Good luck.
Good
yeah,
vibes.
Good vibes. Good
I
vibes. Good
think
luck
the
to
liquid
everybody.
gold under Donald Trump's feet is dog piss, but that's not here.
It's a it's a separate
It's
episode.
a separate
That's a
episode.
separate
Let's
episode.
leave that for the future. Let's see how it all pans out.
In your particular case, there was a very different situation.
Correct.
And the spectacular gentleman
Right.
popped in out of nowhere, and he just mentioned that $1,000 plus a month.
A month.
A month. That's a
From
tremendous,
$1,500.
tremendous jump.
1,500. Yep.
Yeah, that's a big jump. So again, use your calculators. It's a big jump. It's really unfortunately not really a sustainable jump. If someone who's a landlord with a little bit of intelligence is going to realize that, hey, you know what, $1,000 more a month is going to definitely impede on their quality of life. Whether he cares or not about it is a whole different story. But
Right.
at the end of the day, he should, because if in case he decided to entertain that and then falls behind the eight ball, then what happens? I'll tell you what happens. He doesn't pay the rent like he said. You end up in landlord-tenant court, and the landlord gets sent way back behind the eight ball. So who the
Right.
heck wants to go to L&T court in New York City? Nobody, unless you're a psychotic landlord. Right?
Right.
So now Kyle says, I think I should.
So we have a conversation. Okay, I'll meet you middle ground because even if I move out tomorrow, this is still what it is that I'm going to be paying. You know, myself and my kids, single dad. And so I started to look. I was like, all right, like it's time to start looking at what you want to do or what I want to do next. Born and raised in Staten Island, in Brooklyn for 19, 20 years at that point. Anywhere that I looked in Brooklyn that found a home, even a single family home that was in my price point, needed a minimum of $150,000 worth of work just to make it livable.
Yes.
And that was, so again, now I'm kind of, I'm stressing, I'm struggling. You and I have a conversation. He was like,
So you have an Imma therapy.
I have
Imma
Imma
therapy.
But like, she's very like matter of fact. Just buy a house. Imma, what are you talking about? So like we're looking in Brooklyn. I look in the Bronx, parts of Queens. At this point, I think my daughter was going into 8th grade, which means my daughter was going into 7th grade. So my son's going into 5th grade, and I was like, they're too young for me to move 45 minutes away from where their school is, to take the train. But again, born and raised in Staten Island, let me go take a look. Again, long story, make it as short as possible. We find a house. Imma's like, this is the house for you. Okay, I'm going to trust you. We put in a bid, but I'm still going to look. I found another house that I really like, the kids really like. And like there's something shady going on because they won't return our phone calls.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that.
Well, there's a lot of agents out there like that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, they think it's like, I don't know, gold under their pillow.
There's a second house that I go to look at. Same. It's kind of like a starter house. He was like, I don't like it. I run into a friend of mine from high school.
I said, I don't like it.
Quick question from mortgage
I
guy.
don't like it.
Have you already prepared
I
your
had all
pre-approval?
the mortgage paperwork was in. Like I'm walking in the door saying, this is what I'm approved for.
So, for our audience, let's make a small mention
Right.
that you were not just being on the therapy.
No, I wasn't
you were
kicking tires.
You're
Yeah.
He was kicking tires. He was feeling it out. Do I stay? Do I pay? Do I go? Let's see what it could bring.
But I was pre-approved.
You
I
were
had
on the
pre-approved.
fence, but you've been pre-approved.
Yep.
You were ready, and your calculator was
Yep.
nearby.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and what the goal was to try to get him a place that could give him bigger space for the same money or less money,
Yes.
right? So that was
Yep.
the goal. So
Yep.
like, where could we get this goal? Where are we gonna land?
Yep. So we find a house. Doesn't need as much work because the owner is actually a contractor. So like he's done a lot of upgrades.
Describe the house.
It was a single family house. It was technically a 2-bedroom, where you could use a living room, office kind of as a third bedroom.
And the stove as a closet.
Right. He had added an addition to the back of the house where his mother-in-law was living. Nice sized yard, long driveway. Basement, the full length of the entire. So it's like there was potential for
A
stuff to
Staten
do.
Island breadth of air.
There you go.
And space, right?
There
Much
you go.
more compared.
Yes.
So, but I'm like, okay. So I put in an offer. We actually signed the contract, but I'm like, I'm gonna keep the appointments that I have, just to see. So I'm on Staten Island one day. I'm out in Mariners Harbor. I'm looking at this one house. Great. No, it doesn't work for me. And I'm like, well, let's see. And this open house pops up that I've been looking for a month and have never seen it. Mm-hmm. And so I go and no one's there. And I call the guy and he's like, oh, I just left. No one came. He comes back and I walk in the house and I'm like, how much is this house? And he tells me, this is the first floor. And we go up to the second floor, 3 bedrooms, 2 additional bathrooms. How much is this house? So he tells me.
Double checking.
Double checking.
Walk up to the 4th floor. Here's the last bedroom.
4th floor?
Like,
Wow.
okay. He's like, now let me show you the studio apartment. So we go downstairs
Bingo.
and we go to the studio apartment. So it's a 2-family. It's a
Two-family.
multifamily. And I go in, how much is this house? And I just keep asking him over, because I want to see if he's going to change what the number is.
Yeah,
He's
because
like,
you can't trust everybody.
you also have the garage, you have the driveway, and then here's the backyard. And the backyard is very important for the purpose of the story because it's a townhouse in a development of 3 different courts. So it's 41 units.
Yes.
Wow.
And I'm in the house that I ended up buying is the last row of units that when they built the development, they wanted to put another row of houses behind it. And the city said no.
No thanks.
So what happens
And
is
they're really great spaces.
everyone on this last row has a yard that is 75 to 85 feet long,
Fantastic.
15 feet wide. All of the other houses, their backyards are only 15 feet long.
Wow.
All for the same price. So who do I call? I call Imma.
Emergency call.
She's like, but you have this bid in and this is going. I was like, Imma, you need to make yourself available tomorrow to come out to Staten Island.
And I did.
Not the next day. 2 days later, it's like, okay, so she comes in. She's like, all right. So she walks in the door. From my lips to God's ears, from her lips to God's ears. Imma's first question was, how much is this house? And so we're walking through, and she's looking, and she's doing her thing, and I'm silent. And she goes, so what do we do about the other one? I was like, we need to call them back and tell them that, because no checks have been cut.
Right.
I was like, yeah, we're pulling out of the deal. I found the house that me and my children are going to be moving into. And I've been there now. It'll be 6 years this September.
Woohoo!
Whoa, congratulations.
6 years. So
September.
2-family, and the mortgage product to use happened to be an FHA loan.
It's an FHA loan.
Did you put down 3 or 3.5%? I don't remember.
Down 3%.
3%.
Once I put down 3% plus plus using a voucher, tenant as
and a
as
voucher
my
tenant in the studio apartment. So wait, let's break this down slowly.
Mm-hmm.
The rent in Brooklyn was going to $2,500.
No, so let's take a step. So now let's step back and bring
Okay.
everybody up, right?
Yeah.
He was charging me $2,500.
Uh-huh.
This was a 3-bedroom apartment, 2 full bathrooms, huge, like brownstone style in Brooklyn. So it was a really, really big apartment. The apartment underneath me was a 2-bedroom, 2 full bathrooms, open floor plan, kitchen to living room was about 27 feet. Really, really big. And then you have the bedrooms. When the tenant underneath me moved out, he gutted the apartment. He made it all top of the line. He cut the living room in half and created a 3rd bedroom that was really a closet.
Yeah.
And he cut the dining room in half and added a laundry room into the dining room. That tenant, when he moved in, was paying $1,250. By the time he moved out, I think he was paying like $1,300 to $1,400. He gutted the apartment, kitted it out, and put it on the market for $4,000.
Wow. See that?
Other people's mortgage. Again.
Again.
People's mortgage.
Other people. Pay your own mortgage.
No hits. He dropped it down to $3,700. He got 3 college students to move in, right? Because now the thing is that you're not even renting to families. It's not about retention. It's about just getting, the money that you can for that year.
As many
They
slices
moved
as
out-
possible, right?
Yeah.
They moved out within 4 months.
Wow.
From last that I heard, he dropped it down to about $3,300, but still he has roommates in there, so he's getting $3,300, for really a 2-bedroom with an office.
Yeah, and it's not a real 3rd bedroom.
Once I collect my rent, my portion of my mortgage is $1,000.
See that? And wait, how big is your space that you share with your 2 children?
I have a 4-bedroom, 2.5 bathroom, 75-foot long backyard with garage and driveway.
And a tenant downstairs on city program that pays the rest of it. So here it goes. There's an upside. This whole story's got an upside because during the pandemic, when everyone was told to stop paying their rent, the only people that were getting their mortgages paid were people on programs like Section 8, City
Programs.
FAPS,
Yep.
HASA, and all the other programs that are taxpayer-assisted programs. And they were working. And look, he's living proof.
Yeah.
Did it cover you through the pandemic?
COVID was actually phenomenal for me.
See that?
It was
Phenomenal.
It was wonderful for me. I moved in.
Another conspiracy theory proved.
Right.
Proved. The
Proved.
pandemic
Yeah.
actually helped people.
Thank
But
you.
it did because a
Yeah.
lot of people were stopping to pay their rent.
I purchased in September of 2019. March 13th, 2020 is when the entire world shut down. So here's what's even funny. I don't know if I told you this. So the woman that ended up being my first tenant, she comes and she looks at the apartment and we're talking. I'm like, all right, I like her vibe. I'm like, where are you coming from? She's like, from Brooklyn. I was like, where? She's like, Bed-Stuy. I'm like, okay, like where? She's like, She lived 3 blocks away from where I had just moved.
See how
like, we
funny the
literally were
universe
neighbors.
is.
She
You
was
see how
following
funny-
you. She was stalking
She
you.
was stalking you.
Yeah.
The universe really works in mysterious
Rent
ways.
stalking.
Yep.
Wow.
She was a great tenant. She had her voucher. She took care of everything, and
So-
my daughter babysat her son during COVID because, you're going to school from home. So when she had to go from work, she had a newborn. She'd bring and my kids,
Wow.
it was COVID was phenomenal for me.
Yay! Yay! That deserves a round of applause. I'm going to talk a little bit about some numbers, though. So he buys this house with 3% down.
Yep.
ends up renting to a city FEPS, I think it was.
At the moment of purchase, the tenant was already there.
No.
It was empty.
Completely delivered empty.
That's
And that was a really nice real estate listing agent because they
3 weeks after I
co-brokered
moved
that
in.
deal.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, 3
So
weeks
he
after.
started interviewing tenants 3 weeks after he moved in. And because, honestly, like, what was your mortgage like without the tenant? What was it going to be? Like, originally, your principal?
31 and change, maybe 32 tops.
So for 3,200-ish, let's not get hung on numbers, he would have had this upper duplex, triplex with a backyard, a garage, a driveway, and the potential for rent downstairs. So look at that.
3,200, 3.5% on my mortgage, and that includes mortgage insurance because of the
FHA.
Yeah. We'll talk a little bit about FHA because it's a very interesting and it's a government-supported program.
Correct.
So a lot of people are shocked when they see that, but they don't understand the logic that the reason why this program was built, and we have a living example of a person who had a much better relationship and he was controlling the tenant. He was able to have interviewing people because these people are living next to him. They don't have a rental property which is in a different town or a different part of the place where they live. So hopefully we're going to be able to talk and dissect the whole details about this program because it's a very important program.
It is an important program, and a lot of people don't think so because they think, 3% down or 3.5%, like my mortgage will be exorbitant. But again, we've always spoken about breaking out the map, stepping out of your comfort zone. It's time to make a move, securing a roof over your head. Stop throwing your money in the fireplace. I think I've said this time and time and time again. Stop paying other people's mortgages. Empower yourself. OPM. Make a decision. OPM. And not OPP, but it's OPM. But in the meantime, break out that calculator and do the math. If you can. So here goes. I did get a call from somebody on my TikTok. And
You're getting calls on TikTok?
Yeah, I post my phone number on my TikTok stuff. So
I
got a call.
Same as like being in your DMs? Or?
Yeah, it's like being in a DM. So I post my phone number for my real estate company, and of course people call me to talk about stuff. But she was pretty smart. She actually had a good idea of buying a house using FHA, a 2-family, and her sister, who's on Section 8, taking her in as a tenant. This is a genius in the making. I wish I could remember her name because I get a lot of calls and emails and DMs and stuff like that off of this. But she's a genius. Her mind is in the right place. That's exactly right. That's exactly what you do. So let's give rough numbers. You buy a house for $300,000 and FHA wants 3% down. I know you're saying, where am I going to live for $300,000? There's plenty places you can live. Expand your boundaries. Everything's a stepping stone. So 3% of $300,000.
Usually it's 3.5%.
All right, so let's say 3.5.
It really depends on the situation.
About 24,000.
Yeah, and also it's very important to understand that there are a lot of important parameters, that the door is being opened for the first time home buyers, and the government is supporting that program. And also, guys, this mentality that, according to the statistics in the United States, the majority of people do not stay in the same mortgage more than 10 years.
Correct.
So think about it. This is my entrance. This is me saying, I don't want to burn my money for rent anymore.
Exactly.
I want to make an investment in my future for me and my family. If I have an opportunity to explore various programs, the smartest people will take a look at FHA, at conventional, at other CRA programs that we talked about briefly, community reinvestment programs.
There's a ton of those everywhere.
Yeah, it's opening the door for you. The door is not closed.
Ask those questions.
Once you are inside, you have a completely different. You are the guy that owns the property right now, that have been renting it out, that have allocated equity. So since the moment you bought it, you're in a completely different game right now.
Yeah.
You
100%.
have a confirmation documents for every step of the way. He purchased, he has a tenant, he has been paying for all of these years. Any lender would be happy to provide with various options to this type of client. There are different situations.
And let's add to this because I think it's an important part to say, right? I'm a single father and have been for 15 years.
See that?
I purchased a house, not we purchased a house.
Right, by himself, just like Ann did.
And moved my kids into. So Yeah, before the process started, I didn't think that it was possible either. You know, like conceptualizing,
Right.
and then you
I'm
sit
glad
with
you're
someone
going there.
who
I'm
knows.
glad you're going
Yeah.
there because here goes. Ready? As Ionas is talking, that's exactly, you must be reading my mind. So that's exactly what I want to point out. Ready? Many people who are looking at this going, what is she, crazy? We need 3.5% down. Who has that money? It's $10,500. That's what 3.5% down is on $300,000 here. I broke out my trusty calculator that's on everybody's telephone. So if you don't have $10,500, you start today saving it.
Right.
Don't go to Puerto Rico on vacation. Stop the Dominican Republic trips. Stop buying Prada shoes, handbags, and everything else, and watch how fast you have $10,500.
Yeah.
You expand those boundaries. He did. He was originally from Staten Island. He was happily living in Brooklyn. His kids were going to school. He decided, I'm not doing this. I'll go back to Staten Island. It's not a problem. Because why? Staten Island afforded him the opportunity to get secure, a roof over his children's head, something to pass on to the next generation to make their lives maybe just a little bit easier in the process. And then hopefully he's going to go on to buy other stuff with time. Because real estate is the way to wealth. And leveraging your money, like I said, turn your debt into gold. Once you have some equity, you can refinance, which brings us to another conversation we had pregame, our pregame party today, was that how do you leverage something today at rough estimates, okay? Don't hang us on any interest rates. We don't work for the Fed. We don't really know. Everything's based off
Crystal
of
ball
your credit
is not
scores.
here today.
And they're not here today. And I'm sure they won't take an interview request. But at the end of the day, let's say approximately 7%. And you were at how much your interest rate was it roughly?
When I started?
Yeah.
3.5.
3.5. How do you leverage that debt going from 3.5? Let's say the equity is $100,000. You want to pull it out. You go from 3.5% to a 7% product today. Approximate numbers here, right? Because nobody knows. We don't have the crystal ball here today. So how do you do that? I'll tell you one way of doing it. And then, of course, Ionas is going to give the technical way of what it involves as a cash out or refinance and things
Before
like that.
you start, we are talking about a reasonable person.
Yeah.
He didn't think, oh, I can do everything. He explored.
He explored,
He
yes.
was open-minded.
So-
you came over without pushing or selling. Hey, you can do that.
Yes.
He took the calculator in his hand. He took the pen, and hey, let me take a look what I can do.
Right.
With bringing this to his family, to his children.
Right.
And we're talking about completely different mentality of a person without say, I can do everything. Before he calculates everything, he takes a look at various
You have
options.
to do the math. We
Right.
say that
And
every
even
time.
after the offer was made and accepted, he was open-minded about other properties.
Of course, and you have to remain, right?
Yeah,
Open-minded.
you have to. You have to.
You have to do the math. You need your little pencil, your notebook. What works? What doesn't work? What could you live with? What are you willing to give up? And
he
so
didn't
it's,
go according to the logic, oh, I already have, let me not even go over there.
Exactly.
He invested his time and his
Lesson.
effort and his focus. Let me go and take a look at this one. Maybe this will be
Right.
better.
And he
Lesson
wa-
number one: do not marry yourself to any property so much that you blind yourself to seeing what else is out there.
exactly.
You know, it's like you're like, oh, this is great. There's still potentially other great stuff. Until you put a check down, there's no marriage.
There's no marriage,
There's
right?
no
exactly.
marriage.
Because then later, once you put the check
All
down, you're
meanings
married.
of that.
Yeah, exactly. Everything's all bets are off. You'll be married to that mortgage. But then again, there's ways to pay it down, and we talk about that from time to time. But
Exactly.
remember one thing: don't listen to anybody. The minute you tell your best friend, your bestie, or whoever it is, I'm thinking of doing this, and they're gonna be like, why? Why are you gonna go to Philadelphia? Why are you gonna go to Arizona? Why are you gonna go to Vegas? Why Staten Island? Why this? Why that? Why the Bronx? Why whatever?
They better stay here with me.
You better stay here with me
I love
because
to
misery
see you
loves
right
company.
next to-
We want to see you burn money in the fireplace
Yeah.
for the rest of your
In a
life.
three-bedroom
Just
So,
sit next
in a
to-
3-bedroom closet, exactly. So, no, what you want to do is one, shut those voices out, get them far away from you, and just focus. And don't tell anybody. Once you sign a contract, you can start celebrating your party, housewarming, barbecue, whatever it is, and invite them. Because at the end of the day, all this chatter does hold us back. It makes us second guess your instinct. So his instinct was, I'm not going to pay this guy this rent, even though, you could love Brooklyn all you want. But at the end of the day, really, like, let's get smart about the money. Let's just get smart. Money matters matter. And it's, like, very critical to figure it out. Like, look at what it afforded him. A wonderful tenant downstairs that paid the rent during the pandemic. Mm-hmm. His rent, mortgage, ended up being only $1,000, like he said, as opposed to staying in Brooklyn and paying $2,500. Plus, he owns an actual house with a driveway and a garage. That home, over time, will grow equity.
Yeah, and nobody's making barbecue at 3 a.m.
And
saying,
no
bro,
one's barbecuing at 3 a.m. saying, yo, bro,
Not
you
my
want to play?
neighborhood.
Not in his neighborhood. So here it goes. At the end of the day, everything is possible as long as you set the plan in place,
as long as
make
you
a decision, right?
As long as you explore the options, right? All this white noise about, bro, listen to people that you trust that are professional in this area. If there's the guy who says, what are you doing? I am exploring. I want to make some adjustments in my life. I don't want to pay this guy who's making these crazy changes, and I don't want to be in that situation. Right. I want to make some steps. And going back to so as you just mentioned, you have been pre-approved. Mm-hmm. You have seen the numbers. You have seen the situation in the market. You were always looking for because the majority of people that worked so hard for getting a pre-approval, that means that you submitted all the documents, that you worked on your credit score, that you looked at all the components, and you had a conversation, and Imma was provided with your pre-approval when you made the first offer.
Correct.
And even then, you didn't say, hey, what is this home? I'm not going to go there. You went over there because you were in Brooklyn at that time.
Yeah.
You had to back yourself and go and ask this person several times, what is the price for this home?
Right.
And at the end of the story, you backed out for the transaction before you send the payment. Yep. You entered in the transaction the property that you had a truth vision for yourself.
And it was just the right fit.
Yeah, exactly.
So you just don't know when that shows up.
A single-family home, so let's put it in greater context, right? Even for you. So the single-family home, I want to say, was 4.25-ish, like somewhere around there, because I actually bid more than what it was that they were asking for, because I was at that point, I was like, we need to lock in something. The house that I ended up buying is a 2-family home for 5.25.
Yeah, totally worth it. So 5.25, 2-family, driveway, garage, a tenant paying
and
a
is
huge
larger
portion.
than the single family.
Yes.
It's like a true 4-bedroom.
Wow.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful house and very comfortable. He's got it all, decorated nicely and stuff. And the backyard is so like great Zen mode, Yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's good stuff.
Amazing.
And so talk about weight. He mentioned he had kids, right? And you were afraid the adjustment. How did they handle that? Commuting now from Staten Island.
So born and raised in Staten Island. So for me, it was
the game over there.
Yeah, it was nothing. At the end of the day, where we were in Bed-Stuy, like I'm in central Brooklyn, and so even on the bus, it was a 45-minute to an hour bus ride for both of them to get to school. In Staten Island, it added 20 minutes.
Not bad.
So it was an hour and 15 to an hour and 20 minutes, but it wasn't even a solid trip. So it's like, okay, you're taking the bus from home to the ferry, but that's only 15 minutes. Like we're all of 15 minutes away from the ferry. And then you're on the ferry for 20 minutes. And then you're on the train for 10 minutes.
Makes it adventurous.
And then you're on another bus, so like it's multiple stops, but
now they have so much
and it
space.
It didn't kill them, right? They're still standing, your kids. They survived the commute.
They're still
and one's in college and one's off to college.
And then
they chill at home on Zoom.
So my thought is, imagine if COVID happened and we're doing homeschooling in this 3-bedroom apartment where they're sharing a bedroom because the 3rd bedroom is my office.
Right, so they were sharing a bedroom.
Right. I was like, and so
look how perfect that worked out.
I carved out the house that no matter where you were, there was something for you to do. Wow. So you had your bedrooms where you could do whatever. My daughter was a dance major. I split the living room in half. Half of the living room was her dance studio. The other half was my work office space.
Amazing.
It's separate from my office space upstairs, which is like, my reading, my writing, and everything else. The kitchen was like their classroom, so they could be in the kitchen when they had class, and my daughter would come over here. Once it warmed up, I actually ran power outside to the deck and let them do school outside. You know, I put a little awning over the top. They were sitting outside in the sunshine.
Summer office.
Yes.
Summer office.
Outdoor
Wow.
school.
You know, so
Outdoor
timing
stuff.
wise,
You know,
yeah.
So Crystal Ball was not involved in that decision. Had nothing to do with it.
Crystal Imma.
Crystal
Okay.
Imma. I'm like,
Yeah.
just buy something.
So
and it wasn't a
since-
sales pitch. It was genuine. Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to. A lot of real estate agents are like, oh, you got to buy, because they resell real estate. So it's almost like going to the shoe store and saying, I need shoes. They sell shoes. They're like, sure, what kind of shoes do you want? Or going to, Foot Locker because you want sneakers. They sell sneakers. So they're like, hey, we got these new Jordans in and whatever the heck they sell there. But so it's not like that for me. It's more like, be smart about the money. Just buy something. If the math works, just buy it, because at the end of the day, you'll always have something you can sell. Right? But when you rent, you'll never have anything to sell.
Yeah, but even if the math does not work at the moment, doesn't need to be that you should be dying in the ground hole of not working math.
Agreed.
You have people you can talk to. What can I do to improve my position? Because as of right now, your equity is significant in the property.
Yes.
The value of the property itself is up significantly. So if at some point, by any means, you decide to make a renovation, to move here, or buy another investment property, which we're definitely going to be talking about.
Absolutely.
Right? You have experience. You know that it actually works, right? So, ladies and gentlemen, if the math does not work right now, you need to be on the path of improvement.
Yes.
Which is absolutely possible if you know the parameters of how these things work, how many programs, what can work for you, and where can this work for you. So, Imma, open up the door. Hey, let's take a look at this area.
Yep.
Let's go. Because although you were growing up over there, you thought, why should I even go?
I
there?
do.
I told her, she was like, why are we going to Staten Island? I was like, because I'm born and raised here. Like, I know the neighborhoods. She was like, okay. Let me know the places. We'll come out and we'll take a look. But to your point, one thing I want to say is that if you are in the mindset, it's not even say the position, the mindset that you want to purchase real estate, you have to do the preparation work. Like, there is, unless you are just, I don't know, like you're well off and you're not paying anything for where you are. Like, there's no tomorrow, like, hey, I'm gonna buy a house. Like, you have to prepare your credit. You have to prepare, you have to cure
your mindset,
your
just like
savings
you
and
said.
showing, like,
Yes.
like everything is a process. The biggest thing, and at the point where I purchased this home, I had already purchased 2 homes before that. I was already an investor, so like I had gone through the process.
Right.
If you've never been through it, you have to understand it is a process. It takes time, but
100%.
it's not a long amount of time.
No.
But mentally, you have to prepare yourself to, these are the steps. In the middle of the steps, extra steps will be added that make absolutely no sense to you or to anybody else. But you get to what your goal is.
Yeah.
And then you realize the process actually isn't that hard as long as someone tells you what the steps are.
Right. So once you get the outline and the steps and you're prepared for what's coming next, it makes it a little easier, right? Mortgage Icon.
Mortgage Icon is about to add some spice to this story.
And
just
part.
guys, there are so many different dynamics in this. You are entering an arena of conversation. The more prepared you are, the better people you have on your side is significantly better for your end result. In beautiful and amazing state of New York, there was a situation when the transaction between buyer and the seller was so antagonistic, people started hating each other through this transaction so much that at a certain point, a seller stabbed the buyer during the signing sales contract.
That's crazy.
And the police officer was that happened through the process that is called a final walkthrough, right?
Wow.
So people were hating each other so much, so one guy stabbed another guy, but the transaction still closed.
Of course it did.
So
They were
the
in
seller
contract.
really wanted to sell, the buyer really wanted to buy, but the
Wow.
level of hate was so insane that even after one guy stabbed another, the transaction was successfully closed. So the more understanding you have, the more professional people you have on your side, the less chances that someone would stab another guy during and this
Don't
is,
get afraid. Don't worry. You're not
yeah,
going to stab
don't get. So this is a crazy story, but
they do happen, right? There's a ton of crazy stories in real estate.
Because the seller.
That's a whole nother episode about
It's a whole separate episode.
That in and of itself could be a show.
It's in and of its show because the reason for that, the seller has his own life, the buyer has his own life. The seller really wants to sell. He has some liabilities, he has some family plans, many different things, and somebody forgot something. Oh, this lien wasn't this situation was not
so many things
taken care of. Last minute thing. But since you are prepared and you understand your mindset, this is an important transaction. I need to keep my game on. I have a professional real estate agent. I have a mortgage guy. In the state of New York, I have an attorney.
That's right. So you have layers
of protection, guys. I have layers of protection, and I'm not here to be stabbed or stab anyone. I'm here to get the keys for my property and see you never.
But patience is key.
Patience is key, and persistence beats resistance, I always say.
Purchasing real estate is the epitome of the hurry up to wait game.
Yes, hurry up to wait. Yes, I love that. That's exactly what it is.
It's the poster child for that statement.
Yes, actually, that's so true. But so here goes, right? We want to stay focused. We want you to set a plan. We want you to know it's possible, not impossible. And don't always share your thoughts about that with anyone else. So I know a lot of people that might be jumping in or jumping out of these podcasts and not sure if it's like it's a thought that comes into your mind overnight. You're not sure. Just send us a DM. Put it in the comments. We'll be more than happy to address it in a show or anything like that. So maybe you want to buy a 2-family home. Maybe someone you know happens to be taking in vouchers. Maybe they'll be your tenant, and right off the bat, you can have what you want. I do get a lot of calls about all these different scenarios, right?
TikTok calls?
They're calling right through TikTok? TikTok is an amazing place.
Blowing up her DMs.
We live in the era of TikTok.
I get my DMs. They send me phone numbers. They send me their email address. They just want to talk and see how they can get somewhere, right? So remember, there's a lot of programs out there for first-time buyers. There's a lot of opportunity zones and things of that nature. You just have to say, I'm thinking of buying, and then just make the phone calls. That's really all it's going to take is let me just ask some questions.
Right.
How do I do it? What's step 1 look like? How long is this process? How much money do I really, really need? I mean, there's some things out there. Veterans can get 100% financing. USDA loans get 100% financing, and then other things can be as low as. Is there a 95?
There are
loan, 5 down, 3%, 3.5. I mean, come on, there's so many programs.
We live in such an interesting era that requires for you to do your own due diligence. And since you're gonna have multiple conversations with multiple people, you can say we live in the era where you can record by saying, "Hey, let me record. Let me write down with a paper what's going on. Can you send me a follow-up email? Let me take a look." And when you have a moment, because all of us, we have the life, you're not doing mortgage every day. Some people do mortgage 24/6 every week. So the idea is that, and also your specific scenario is very important. And think about the fact that acting financially responsible, some people couldn't close mortgage because they decided to buy Bentley.
Yeah, exactly.
During the
transaction.
During the transaction, they decided
furniture or shopping.
They really need some new shoes, some new credit cards, some new situations. And it happens.
With me.
Yeah, here we go.
So
speaking of which,
in the middle of the process, a former coworker of mine, he moved on. He's working for a recruiter, so he calls me. He's like, "Hey, send me your resume. Let's just throw it. It's like, you need to throw your resume into the market every so often just to kind of kick tires and see what's going on."
Yeah.
Sure, no problem. Hey, this firm wants to interview you. Sure. I'm not taking the job, but I'll go. Okay, I go to the interview. It's a great interview. I get on the train. I'm coming back to my job. I come out of the train station. There's 25 messages on my phone.
Wow.
He goes, "I don't know what happened at this interview, but they called me within 7 minutes of you leaving. They want to follow up." I'm like, okay, it's great. It's but you do realize I'm not leaving my job. He's like, but I was like, bro, I'm in the middle of buying a house.
Can't do that.
I'm weeks to a month at most,
No. So yes and no. Yes and no. First of all, they offered something realistic.
Right.
And you told them, "Hey, let me close my transaction and I'll come over." That was the response.
But I also, because I wasn't serious about taking another job.
Right.
Like I lowballed myself. I just kind of threw a number out there, like just to see what was going on in the market. So when they came back, they were like, "At that
This
number,
is our guy.
this
This is
guy,
our guy.
He's mine."
that's where we're going." I was like, "There's no, So he calls them like this. I'm like, I don't know why all these.
Bro,
phone
why are you
co-
calling me?
These conversations
So
are
if you
going back
told
and
them,
forth.
if you told them a more specific number, that
He
conversation
says,
would be a lot
what
different.
number would you need to leave your job
Right now.
to come over here right now? I said they would have to give me $40,000 more than what it is that I'm currently making, which is way above even
Right.
like the cap, of my
Right,
position.
your
Something's
position.
different.
I was like, because in order for me to take the chance, and this is once we had found the house, that I am not going to be able to close on this house because I'm leaving my job, it would have to be significant enough for me to have to sit back and wait until, all the process and the paperwork allows for me to move forward.
Well, because generally, mortgage
First of all, you
icon-
didn't buy a Bentley, right? You
No.
didn't
You
go.
didn't buy a
You didn't go with
Bentley.
credit cards,
No.
just spraying cash everywhere.
No.
That was a different situation.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I mean, basically, you should have a steady employment when you're financing, and definitely don't use your credit cards during the process.
Right.
The banks are looking at
All
everything
of that.
carefully. All of that matters, and the reason it matters is they want to see stability. They want to see that you're not
You're a
reckless,
reliable person.
that you're
You-
reliable.
You don't depend on Bentley
and
tonight.
not a fly by night like, oh, I'm just like gonna like impulse shop and buy everything at the
Yeah.
checkout counter because it's staring at you in the face like Snicker bars and Milky Ways. So you're gonna have to like bypass that,
Yeah.
But here goes.
Here goes. So realistically, the situation was very interesting because if you told them the real number, there would not be 7 calls missed just to begin with. But in the reality, situations like that, they happen. It's very, very important. And different programs, different guidelines have different understanding. But that means you would have an offer. There would be a start date, and there would be different ways to confirm that this is a real situation, that the guy is going up, he's not going down in the realistic scenario.
Yeah.
However, there are
part.
that part. However, if there's a scenario that the guy who is a lawyer suddenly becomes someone who is, I don't know, is a guy who is
What?
IT manager,
Right.
or an actor, or a painter, a model, right? Suddenly, the lender says, "Hey, where's the logic, bro?
Right,
You've been 5 or 10. You have been consistently doing things,
And why? It creates risk.
It creates a significant risk.
A significant risk.
Maybe the guy is.
Wait, I'm gonna be a bartender. Let's just do that.
Yeah.
And live off a tip.
I'm
and
gonna
see
be a
how far we go.
freelancer.
Freelancer.
So consistency and understanding. But if the person has been a teacher or being professor in school and had got a nice offer from his nice institution, what's the logic of not going there? As long as there are letters explaining the situation and the start dates,
Understood,
there are
right.
also some connections towards the closing date. But it's because any lender wants just to see consistency and no
course.
Bentleys or
Yep.
other things, which happens. Some people buy boats. Hey, just wanted to buy a boat.
Making me choke.
I forget.
In the middle of the project.
Yeah, and
I'm buying a house.
and the funniest thing is that a lot of real estate agents
crack
or
me
mortgage guys do not focus on this because they think that this is something given, right? This is something that the person should understand. Yes, let me shut up, okay? About
That
the
was
benefit.
the easiest thing and easiest way for me to get him to stop talking. No, so here's a little trivia question. This air conditioning's like going down my throat. What does, you're gonna love this one. What does Beyonce,
Oh God.
Kim Kardashian,
This is
Warren
gonna
Buffett,
require me to put on a shirt. It's cold.
Kiyosaki, and Donald Trump have in common? This is a simple thing. Don't overthink it.
Everyone knows that all of these beautiful and so I can assume that Mr. Warren Buffett is a singer. But I think that probably something that
Warren Buffett is not a singer.
I know. But the thing is that
might
maybe
be, though.
maybe what connects them is that they all have mortgages.
Or what? They own real estate.
Of course.
That's what they have in common.
That's what they have in common.
And most of them leverage it with mortgages. So, if they can do it, you can do it. If we all can do it, so long as you make the decision, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we want to make sure that people don't think like, oh, it's so out there and not possible. It is. And the only reason we feel that real estate is so critical is because I personally believe it's probably the best investment vehicle. That's my own personal opinion. I'll go up against people who are stockbrokers and stuff because at the end of the day, I don't think I know any one person that didn't lose money in stocks that were wealthy and still lost money, right? And or their 401k plans and stuff like that. Can you lose money in real estate? That's a good question. Real estate is generally, like I think I mentioned the Case-Shiller Index on prior podcasts, but it's generally like a longer term project, right? Because you needed time to appreciate, but it can make money in real time, right? So it's making the money in real time while it's appreciating, whereas stocks are very volatile.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also you
Okay.
cannot live in your stocks.
And you can't live in your stocks.
Right.
And you can't secure anything with your stocks.
It's a significant understanding that this word mortgage, what was the idea behind that, right? So for anyone who's looking at their documents that are going with their mortgage, it's called loan estimate. And it breaks
Right.
down every component. How much are you getting? What is the estimate pricing, taxes, insurance? All of these things are being covered. And on the other page, there is an understanding of what would be the amount of interest rate that would be paid for this particular loan
Right.
that you're getting. So there's no hidden mirrors or hidden factors. And the guys are looking, oh my God, I'm going to be paying so much. First of all, it talks about the loan time. So this is the total amount of interest rate that you would pay throughout 30 years if you get a 30-year mortgage. But what does this open for you? It opens for you an ability to live in your investment.
Correct.
In-
But you can't live in the stocks.
You cannot,
can't live in the
you
stocks.
cannot live
You
in,
can't really do
in
that.
diamonds.
That's not happening. Or diamonds or any art. You
I mean-
can't. I mean, you could display art. You could wear diamonds, but you're not going to be able to live in that, right? So, and they are volatile markets. But everyone needs housing, whether you're renting or buying or investing.
Agreed.
Someone needs housing. As long as humans keep procreating, we need housing. I want to go back to what I was saying before we get sidetracked in this amazing conversation. How do you take a mortgage that was written at 3.5% and then refinance it today at 7.1? I never finished how you do that. So how do you turn money, your equity that grew, your mortgage rates were only 2.5%. If you decided to refinance that, hold on. Hold that thought. You decide to refinance that and pull out some equity. Now you're paying a higher rate on that money. Where would you go with that? Well, you have to break out the map, expand the boundaries, and go where no man has gone before. And venture into new territory where maybe the return is 10% on your money, 12, 14, or 20. And it does exist in this country. I went to Philadelphia yesterday, and I'm not going to give up the goods because I got that all ready for another show. But here it goes. There is real estate in Philadelphia that is returning a 14% on your money, 12% on your money. And so maybe that's when you would leverage something like that and say, you know what? I don't really care where the real estate is. We'll hire a property manager. I'm not going to ever go there because it took me 5 hours to get back. I wanted to kill them. They shut down the GW Bridge lower level. It was a catastrophe. The Lincoln Tunnel was backed up. It took me about 5 hours to get back. I was fit to be tied. I was cursing at everybody and damning that Philly cheesesteak sandwich I ate, which was so delicious. But anyway, so yes,
it was a pleasant ride.
It was a pleasant ride. Yes, I tried to remain in Zen mode, but I just couldn't handle it. Yeah, I know. I have to go to Staten Island. So just to give you a quick glimpse, right? South Philly has real estate properties as low as $200,000 a home. Some are $500,000. Of course, there are those in the millions, right? Depending on where in Philadelphia you are. Just use any one of those as an example. Even at bare minimum rent, the numbers work, right? So you'll be taking a debt that was a low interest rate, turning it into a higher interest rate, pulling out the equity, which your debt turns into gold that way, because then that mortgage that he just leveraged on a cash out, or I did, or he did, whoever's doing it, gets to go into another state and buy something that can actually return them a higher rate of return, a higher ROI.
In other words,
so here we handed back off to the mortgage icon.
Imma is saying that it's very important to make sure that this interest rate that is accompanying this mortgage solution, this lending solution, is being significantly covered by the income that this property is generating for you. Because even if it's 7.5, 6, whatever, half, it's not your problem, because this problem, this solution is being brought to you by the ability of make this investment property to generate the necessary amount of income that would cover principal, interest, taxes, insurance.
It's called a PITI, P-I-T-I. Principal, interest, taxes, and insurance.
Yes.
A PITI. Isn't it a pity?
Yeah. So this is a very important component, because there are so many different solutions available for you.
There are. And states. Wait, I hate to always interject, but I do love it at the same
That's
time.
okay.
So Myrtle Beach. Forget it. You don't want to go to Philly. You don't want to go to South Philly. Who wants to drive there? So go to Myrtle Beach. There's plenty condos that are in condops that you can use that same equity, put it into something that's ocean front, okay, that goes into some kind of whatever investment vehicle, right, that's booked up. So but then once you pull your equity out of your home, you can basically do whatever the heck you want with it. All right, let's make sure we're clear. It's not a HELOC. It's not a home equity line of credit. When you pull that money out, you can do what you want with it. You could buy a Bentley.
Not interrupting Imma, but just
Couldn't they buy a Bentley?
Yes.
Yes, you see?
Not in the middle of the morttage transaction.
No. After you pull the money out.
Somebody wants a Bentley.
We're talking about Bentley too much.
No, my favorite car is a Porsche, in case anyone wants to buy me one.
Our favorite car is to be American car, so it's a Cadillac since today.
I do like Cadillacs. I
Everyone
do. But
likes
Porsche
Cadillac.
has been in my heart since the 80s with the whale tail. And you want to know something? Maybe we get them as a sponsor and I could get a free car.
There we go.
That would be great.
I like
It's a good idea.
That's a good
so,
idea.
so going back, so there are different. We will have a specific episode about different investment strategies.
Strategies.
So there are different stock investment strategies, but unfortunately, none of them involves the ability for you to sleep in the paper of stock.
Exactly.
But however, some of the transactional strategic decisions that you might make might give you an ability to have your amazing property in very interesting areas where you and your family can go throughout the year, and other parts of the year you will be renting it out.
Exactly.
So
that is golden.
So instead of
Florida, Arizona, Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
Las Vegas.
Absolutely.
So a lot of places, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Even Philly. Philly's great. I mean, like downtown Philly, South Philly's like great. It's got such good culture. Feels like New York. It's got the Rocky statue. I mean, like there's a lot of things there, that make it interesting. And these cute, adorable row houses. Oh, they're so adorable, side steps. You just get that Adrian hit when you walk in those streets, And I know I'm dating myself. But at the end of the day, everybody knows Philadelphia, the Liberty Bell. There's
Absolutely.
a lot to do
This
there.
is a place of history. There's
It's a
so many
place of
things.
history.
So many good things to see. So many.
Allentown, Pennsylvania is another great place, So, so you could do a condo in Myrtle Beach on the ocean. I saw an ad just last night for a 1-bed, 1-bath, direct ocean front for $154,000. Okay, let's get serious here. You can totally Airbnb that, and you can totally go there with your family on vacation, and you'll only need, if it's not 3%, I don't know if they allow FHA. Let's pretend you can't do that because you want to do an investment, and you need whatever, $20,000 to buy, $25,000. Start saving. The opportunities exist. So let's not forget that buying can be trying, but you got to be persistent to break down that resistance. And don't tell everybody everything, because believe it or not, there are more naysayers out there. And the human mind is so intricate. It's like the most sophisticated computer on the planet. After all, we, the humans, create everything from this gold coin to this magic 8-ball to this amazing cell phone to your laptop computers. Don't think the technology is creating us. We've created everything on this planet with the exception of nature. Nature actually created us. But so here goes. Ready? You create your future. You paint that beautiful picture, and don't give the brush to anyone but yourself. Empower yourself. If you have fear, bash it. If you have people are holding you back, shut that chatter down. Call professionals that don't even know you. Call me. Call Ionas. Call Kyle. I mean, like, at the end of the day, talk to us. Real people, real time, real stories. That's what it's all about.
Imma therapy will save you to begin with.
I call it real estate therapy.
But this is very specific. This is the person
But math
who
is
has
critical, and I hate
many,
math.
many years of experience. A person
Yes.
who knows other states, other areas.
I do.
And the biggest question, what works for you?
And countries. I just love real estate, so I've always found an interest in other states, other countries, other cultures. I've traveled in my last career. Like I said, I used to work at TWA at the age of 18 years old. I was in Central America during guerrilla warfare, and it was like, why are you going to Honduras? Because I want to go. I mean, like, what's the big deal? If I die, I die. I'm not afraid. But at TWA, I know. I'm dating
Sounds
myself.
like we have another special episode.
Yeah, we do.
Topic.
But another topic. But so here it goes. Ready? When you travel a little bit and you experience the world and you expand your boundaries, just live in New York City and really, really live in New York City, you got no choice but to embrace that. So I love real estate. I look everywhere. I didn't mind going to Philly yesterday. I didn't mind taking this road trip to probably what is, like we were talking pregame. What'd you compare it to? I can't say it. You can.
Brownsville.
10 times worse than Brownsville.
Philly and Brownsville are
10 times worse.
are twin cousins.
And look, watch this. When I tell someone about Newburgh City, okay, and I'm going back 10 years ago, everything was $1,000 at auction. Newburgh City, everybody said, you're out of your mind, Imma. You're freaking crazy. You're a lunatic. That is the crime capital of the country. It is not. I go, no, it's not. It got beautiful row houses. It looks like Brooklyn to me. And guess what today? You can't buy anything in Newburgh for $1,000, let alone go out to dinner for less than $300 on the waterfront. And guess what? The homes have grown exponentially, and someone is buying block by block by block. So your investment at the time at a tax lien auction for $1,000 would have now returned you $500,000. How does those numbers sound in 10 years? There's no stock that's going to do that consistently. None. So here it goes. Yeah, they got a long way to go still, and they're still taking care of business there in Newburgh. But I love upstate. I love the Hudson Valley. But I also love Philadelphia. There was just something about the diamond in the rough. And I feel like, you know what? It's time to just expand those boundaries and say, hey, maybe I could provide housing for someone on a City FEPS voucher or Section 8 or something like that. And you buy some property in Philadelphia and you fill it with Section 8.
Also known as area in development.
Areas in development. The waterfront's getting developed there too, so listen up carefully. They just built new condos along C Street, and here it goes. That's just the beginning. I already know the signs. I've been in this business 20 years. So anyone looking to venture out, I call Philadelphia.
I think one of the greatest things that I heard you say from one of the previous podcasts is people get stuck in looking where they want to live versus looking where they are able to live.
Correct.
They have these blinders on, like, this is where it is that I want to be, and they don't open themselves up to the possibilities of other places that you could actually go to and still enjoy, living there and maybe even have a greater life. Perfect example. I'm born and raised in Staten Island, and all of my friends that may also But my family is also primarily from from the U.S., from the South, North, and South Carolina. Most of my friends are from the Caribbean. But I was the one every summer that was going down south, to visit grandma or traveling, and like they stayed. I would always say as a kid, like Staten Islanders don't leave Staten Island. Like they go to school there, they work there, they live there, they club there, they hang out until they live. And so we get older, we start having kids and married or what have you, and like at least 4 of my closest friends, who again are born and raised in New York on Staten Island, family from the Caribbean, are in like North Carolina, Georgia, and Texas.
That's it.
And so I moved back to Staten Island, and they're like, how are you, the person that when we were kids was never on Staten Island, the one who came back to Staten Island? Because I did the same thing that they did. I just did it within New York.
Right.
I looked outside of where it was that I wanted to be to where it was that I was able to be, and found something that was better than where it was I thought that I wanted to be.
Exactly. So, as we begin to recap before we wrap. Is my line.
Wrap up.
Recap before we wrap. So we want to just make sure we give you some really, really good short pointers. What is one thing that you could pass on to someone who's listening for the first time and woke up today and said, I'm so sick of paying rent. What should I do? Like, what would you say if you had the opportunity to talk to the masses right now? Like,
I would add 2 points, and they're tied in. And one is, if you are tired of renting, then you have to put in your mind that it is possible for you to own. You have to accept. You have to know that and move forward, and then in that, open yourself up to where it is that you could possibly live, or where you would want to live.
And I want him to say one more point. Being a homeowner, living in a home, and renting a unit, which he's not required to, take city FEPs and all that. It's a 2-family home, and he lives there. How is that? Like, what could you tell the public? Like, don't be afraid. Like, it worked out for you.
It's at the end of the day, when you own a home, it's still your responsibility to interview the tenant.
Exactly.
Whether they're paying out of their own pocket, or the city is paying for them, or there's a combination thereof, you still have to have a conversation with them, right? I've had 3 tenants since I've been there going on 6 years. My first tenant was phenomenal. My second tenant was, I don't know if we can use profanity, was bad, beep, crazy, beep, and I thank God that she's just not there anymore, and that's another podcast.
We're gonna bring that back on.
And this tenant is like, he's great. Like he's like me. Like, we never see each other because he works all the time. We see each other like, oh, you're home. Oh, you're home. Okay, but he keeps a clean house. We maintain
reasonable person.
He's reasonable. So I mean, at the end of the day, like you said, people are always going to have their doubts or their comments.
Exactly. And, but overall it worked. It's 6 years later. Mm-hmm. He's living there for less money than rent, and still living there for less money than rent. So that's a blessing. And then, what do you have as final thoughts in terms of like the whole big thing, like pulling out money, going to other areas to find something that has a bigger return, so that your interest rate gets absorbed somehow? Like, what could you share, like as encouragement?
As encouragement, when you analyze yourself, make sure to take a look at the whole picture. Do not limit yourself. Do not be in those blinds of, hey, I grew up here, I know dudes here, where I like to chill. United States is an amazing country of opportunity.
It is.
Says Ionas, trilingual.
Says
please,
duolingual.
please, guys, my way started in state of Illinois, amazing Chicago. It's completely different universe from New York. New York itself is a universe. It's a multiverse.
It is a multiverse
of different things. What would work better for you?
Right.
Be open to other people's, not opinions, but professional assessments of what could be. There are so many people who work remotely. There are so many people who have other components that are looking for good school for their children, for tomorrow. Put all these things, don't think about just tomorrow. We're talking about 5, 10 years in the future. maybe 20, maybe 30 years, that you would deliver something for your family, for people who are close, that are around you, that you made an educated, wise decision. But you are the person, as Imma mentioned earlier, you have the brush in your hands. Make sure that you don't listen to all the white noise. Make sure that you listen to intelligent professional people that can help you.
Look at it this way, right? Would Van Gogh allow anyone to paint on his canvas while he's handing them the paintbrush of his masterpiece, Starry Night? No, I don't think so.
If they cut his ear, probably yeah.
Picasso or any of these other these amazing artists of art of old times, right?
Caravaggio.
I mean, so many sculptors. You know, you go to pottery class. If you never did try, I can't make anything in pottery class. Everything's all over the place, and yet these sculptors come and they create. Then they're not going to hand you their sculpture, right? To say, hey, why don't you add something to it? They take full control over their creation. You must take full control over your creation. You decide how you create your future, and don't let anyone take that brush away. And quiet that damn chatter. Mm-hmm. You got that, right? So let's go out and start painting the town pink. My son will be happy about that podcast. But in the meantime, so glad you could join us. Thank you, Kyle, for coming here and sharing all of those amazing stories and inspirational
real stories. Not somebody
people,
else's story, your stories.
And
Thank
of course,
you so much.
The mortgage icon himself, Ionas Con. You want to announce your...
Ladies and gentlemen, please, if you have any serious therapy necessities, you need Imma therapy right now.
I can't help
If you would like to have a little bit of calculations to find out all.
Oh wait, Magic 8 Ball time. Sorry.
Thank you for interrupting.
Yeah, it's okay. You want more inspiration? Wait, Kyle, you're gonna get to roll the Magic 8 Ball.
Okay.
Is Kyle going to buy more real estate? Shake it up, baby.
All right, let's go.
Let's see what it says.
We have this answer. Let's see what the Magic 8 Ball says.
We had the answer before. Let's see what it says now. It's hard to see, right?
There's only yes option right over there.
It's only yes option. No, it doesn't float properly like in my days. The original Magic 8 Ball was amazing.
Like it's there.
It's there, but it tilts, right?
Mm-hmm. Come on.
It says most definitely yes.
You can do it. Okay, so we're gonna go with the answer that we got before, which was most definitely yes, because
you can't read this.
Because nothing's popping up this time.
Let me shake it up and see. Okay, is Ionas coming back on the show? Can you see that?
Most likely.
There you go.
Of course he is.
Take it.
So that's the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again in the near future. Look out for us. Put your comments. Send us messages. We want to help. We want to get you home, no matter where that home is.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, we are represented on many amazing platforms. Please leave your comments. Please leave your feedback. We're more than happy to connect and help you to move forward.
Instagram, Spotify, Apple Podcast,
YouTube.
Wait, there's more.
There's more?
Yeah, there's a lot more actually. X, we're on X also. I think
those calls on TikTok.
Pandora and no, my TikTok is my TikTok. You could look it up. It's great, but
it's good for
we'll be out there. We're gonna be out there. We're everywhere. I think maybe even on Audible, if not soon. But in the meantime, what can I say? We're everywhere. Just look it up. Imma Talks. Welcome. Thank you. Until next time.
More house.
Yeah,
exactly.
More house. Everyone
so
who's
much.
graduating, congratulations out there, young ones. The world is your oyster.